Well, in case you missed the news, Christopher Eccleston is back as the Ninth Doctor, and in today's Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review, I'm going to be taking a look at the first exciting volume of adventures, which is of course entitled Ravagers, as written by Nicholas Briggs, featuring the return of, yes, the Ninth Doctor himself, which I still cannot quite believe, yet here we are. Just as a little bit of context, I've been away over the past few weeks. I've been doing exams and assignments for university, meaning that I'm now playing catch up of all these delightful Big Finish audio dramas that have came out over the past few weeks, and starting off on a high with the Ninth Doctor himself. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website in a number of different formats. So to start off with, it is available as per usual on physical CD. The current price is at £24.99 and the download is £19.99. I do believe after 1 or 2 months this will be going up in price to around £35 to £40. However, if you are a collector, and in particular if you are a fan of Doctor Who vinyls, this release is also available on vinyl for £36. But do be warned, it is limited edition to 1,000 pressings per volume, so if you are wanting this release, I highly recommend purchasing it soon in order to avoid disappointment. A number of additional things to note is that regardless of which format you decide to purchase, the media itself remains exactly the same. However, the delivery might be a little bit different. So for the CD and download, of course, you get your episode itself as well as the behind the scenes and the music as it would usually be presented on the CDs. However, for the record release, on the record itself you get the actual episode, and then you get access via the Big Finish website to the download for the music, the edits of the stories that will be on the download version. Due to it being pressed onto two sides of a record, it is a little bit different, but the actual episode remains the same, and of course access to the behind the scenes material as well, which isn't pressed onto record. Due to this being a series of 4 volumes, of course going up until 2022, with 2 further releases coming out throughout this year, I recommend, especially if you're wanting to purchase the records, actually purchasing the bundle of all of the releases on the Big Finish website to kind of avoid the possible event of, say, getting volume 1, volume 2, missing out on 3 due to it selling out prior to the release, and then getting volume 4. So if you purchase the bundle, if you can afford it, you have all of these stories already banked in without that fear of missing out on the record in the future, and that same advice also goes for the current Dalek Universe series as well. So this review is going to be taking a slightly different approach because I imagine a lot of people have already listened to this box set and they're simply watching this review to see my opinion because it is quite an exciting and pivotal release within the Big Finish catalogue. However, this review is going to be taking kind of a discussion-based format because the overall setting of this box set is 3 45-minute to 1 hour stories, but they aren't all individual episodes. All of the characters carry across from all of the stories, meaning that it is one big 3-hour-ish adventure. So as a result, this review is going to be a discussion of kind of all of the stories as one package, as opposed to the individual episodes and the various characters that we meet along the way, to basically discussing my expectations for these Ninth Doctor adventures, what we actually get, and kind of where I hope this series goes in the future as well. To start off with my initial expectations, because I must admit I was a little bit worried, because I think after all of this time many Doctor Who fans have wanted to see the Ninth Doctor return, and as a result eventually getting that news that Christopher Eccleston is coming back leads to very high expectations of what we want to see. We want to see Big Finish deliver in basically the Doctor Who adventures that we have wanted to experience for so many years, and now we finally get to see that happen, and as a result I think that these releases have a lot riding on them, and the subsequent releases as well. So as a result I went into this release a little bit nervous as to what Big Finish were going to do, because it could be very successful or it could flop, but also at the same time I wanted to ensure that I was treating these releases to exactly the same level of expectations that I would any other Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama, be it to simply enjoy a Doctor Who adventure. And I didn't want to get too overly excited, because I'm aware when the initial 10th Doctor Adventures came out, a lot of Doctor Who fans were branding the first volume of 10th Doctor Adventures as some of Big Finish's best content in years, and of course in hindsight, looking back in reality, yes, those episodes are enjoyable, yes, they are very much of that era, however they don't particularly stand up as being some of Big Finish's best ever output. They are good stories, however they are enjoyable, they aren't standout incredible in my personal opinion. So I wanted to ensure with this release that I was treating it to exactly the same level of expectation that I would any other. I simply didn't want to get too overexcited by the fact that Christopher Eccleston is back as the Ninth Doctor. And as a result, I'm going to conclude that this release is indeed enjoyable. It is indeed very good, and it is indeed very pleasant to see Christopher Eccleston back in the role. And me, as a Doctor Who fan who grew up with 2005 Doctor Who, it's great to see him back, especially in the hands of Big Finish, a company that I very much respect, because they have managed to turn around many Doctors and give them the era that they wanted. Of course, the Sixth Doctor, my personal favourite, his era on the show was rocky, to say the least. However, Big Finish have been able to expand his era, and more importantly, give Colin Baker the stories and contents and acting that he wanted to have within the TV show. Him and Big Finish have managed to create the incarnation of the Doctor that he wanted to be, and I was very excited to see Big Finish be able to do that with the Ninth Doctor and expand on an era which admittedly is pretty short, however pretty iconic at the same time. I understand Big Finish's idea to go down a completely different route and have stories that predate actual 2005 Doctor Who. It makes sense because we want to see the Ninth Doctor develop. However, my main concern with this is that yes, we're not going to be able to have Dalek stories because that will take away from the impact of the likes of Dalek, as well as Parting of the Ways, thinking that he is the last one within the universe after the events of the Time War. But equally, I kind of feel, and I might be wrong by this, it might be my personal opinion, but any companion that he gets along the way might not be able to have as much impact on his Doctor because he still needs to be the same character that we get to see within the events of Rose. We still need to have this Doctor that is recovering from the Time War. He still believes that he is the last one, and he's quite a troubled character, so perhaps Big Finish are going to use that and create companions that perhaps are going to help him build as a person, but also perhaps trouble him at the same time. We come on to the actual contents of Ravagers itself, and Christopher Eccleston is what holds this box set together, I think. It is very, very clear that Eccleston is very comfortable within the audio drama format, and he is having a lot of fun. There's a lot of really fun scenes for all three stories within this set, but also at the same time, he seems to be enjoying himself. He seems to be enjoying being back in the role, and that is also clear from the behind the scenes as well. He's really enjoying playing this hero that has all the answers. He lumbers into a situation with this confidence, and what we see throughout this set is endless, brilliantly written scenes where the Ninth Doctor, I actually wrote in my notes, I described him as a time-travelling lad, because he is a lad. He comes into a situation just like, alright, and he owns each scene. He owns with this swagger, and I think it's very, very comforting to have a Doctor like this that is considerably laid back, but also reserved at the same time. He's a character that, most importantly, you can trust. He's mysterious, he's unknown, but you can trust him when he really needs you to trust him, and that's what we get to see throughout this series. I think that Christopher Eccleston has some really standout moments. Doctor Who Series 1 is my personal comfort Doctor Who. When I feel down and I want to watch Doctor Who, I watch Series 1. This box set didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like I already knew the Ninth Doctor on Big Finish, and this was merely a continuation. It was a comfort, very much like how Doctor Who Series 1 was. This series, I was pleasantly surprised that we actually get to see one big 3-hour story split across 3 individual episodes. We have this intertwined plot arc, and all of the episodes aren't independent. They have their own thing, yes, they have their own locations, however they don't stand by themselves as individual stories, which is a bold move for our first box set because it is one big 3-hour episode, and I expected them to go down a simpler route that we get to see within the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 1 and 2. So we have a considerably experimental start. I'm really happy to see that within the next volume we are going to see some smaller 1-hour stories, because I must admit I don't know if a 3-hour big adventure was the best way to introduce the series. I do love a good 3-hour adventure. I'm used to the 8th Doctor adventures, which require like 48 hours back listening in order to fully appreciate, but with this series I was expecting a few smaller episodes that are more independent and let the Ninth Doctor come in, solve a situation, leave. I wanted a bit more standard Doctor Who, but that's not to say that I didn't enjoy this series. I thought this series, more importantly, allowed time to develop the main characters. The cast is considerably small, meaning that throughout the bulk of the story we get to know everybody involved as well as the subsidiary characters. So for example, we have Camilla Beeput playing Nova, who basically becomes the Doctor's companion, and their relationship is not a conventional Doctor-companion relationship. I think that Camilla is a really enjoyable actress. I think that she's really enjoyable to listen to, she's very easy to get along with, and as a result she does very much remind me of the Series 1 and 2 version of Rose, because somebody who is putting a lot of trust within the Doctor, because Rose is this character, of course, who went with the Doctor to get away from her normal life. She almost had this fear, I think, of growing up and a day-to-day domestic life. Here we have the character of Nova, who is escaping the sphere of freedom, where she's basically been put into a futuristic equivalent of slavery, where she's in a rather low-paid job, where she gets paid via vouchers, and because of the society that she lives in, it's very problematic and her living conditions are not very good. The Doctor has promised her a brighter and better place to live, so as a result she's relying on the Doctor to fulfil that promise throughout the bulk of the runtime, and that is kind of what ties them together, which I think is very interesting. We also have the character of Audrey as portrayed by Jane McKenna, and I mention Audrey because again she is kind of the villain of the piece. However, she's an interesting villain because she is not an all-cackling evil character. She has a development throughout the plot arc, so we start off at the beginning very much thinking that she is an all-round evil character, but as we develop throughout to see a more well-rounded character with more flaws and a bit more emotion. She's not all bad, and that is interesting to listen to, especially when she interacts with the Ninth Doctor, because they get to build a rapport much easier. Bit of a reminder, the format of this box set is as follows. The first episode is Sphere of Freedom, the second episode is Cataclysm, and the third episode is Food Fight. And the overall runtime is around 42 to 45 minutes long, which initially I was a little bit surprised by, because with, say, the 8th Doctor adventures, especially within the box sets, I'm used to around 50 to 60 minute episodes, so I was quite surprised by the runtime, but then I was reminded that that is indeed the runtime of new series Doctor Who, so it kind of fits in well with that fast-paced nature. If anything, it actually reminded me of a Doctor Who story. It's formatted a bit like a comic book, especially with the Sphere of Freedom. We kind of hop around. We start the adventure halfway through with the Doctor and Nova already knowing each other, and then from 10 minutes in we kind of hop back and then we see how the events have got to this event at the very start of the story. So we already have that introduction and we have the Ninth Doctor basically in full swing, being very dramatic. It's a great way to start the story because it instantly gets the listener hooked. And I think that episode 1 does a good job of slowly introducing the other main characters as well, but as a first episode it is actually not what I expected, and being 45 minutes long, and as I say, it's quite comic book because we hop between different scenes. We almost get little snapshots into the Doctor's life, which to start with I kind of felt was a little bit all over the place, and I was kind of thinking, what is going on here? Who is he talking to now? So I must admit it does take maybe another listen to fully appreciate it, but once you kind of know what is coming, I certainly appreciated it more. As we move into the second 2 episodes of the box set, Cataclysm and Food Fight, the box set starts to relax a bit more. It starts to develop certain characters, and episode 2 in particular kind of delves into that relationship between the Ninth Doctor and Nova and why they are actually together. So I kind of think that we've gone from the opening scene where we have this drama unfolding, of course action, and then throughout the rest of the box set we are kind of building up to that event. So it's all fast-paced. There isn't particularly a dud in there. Food Fight also does a very good job of tying up the loose ends, but not only that, it ties them up as well as introducing new concepts as well. It kind of ends the episode a little bit earlier than you usually would expect, but it gives the Ninth Doctor a little bit of time to tie up those loose ends and basically get to know Nova at the very end of the box set and kind of leave that overall question mark of what is going to happen next, what is going to happen with the Ninth Doctor, or where does he want to go next, because he's got this whole universe to explore. And with the Ninth Doctor you can't help but feel that this is a refreshing new start, and of course that does lead into Volume 2, which will be hopefully, I think, 3 one-hour stories. Fingers crossed. I've already talked quite a lot about character and how the characters are the main focus of this release. The actual plot itself is rather sci-fi in its approach. What I really like about this box set is that we get to see lots of different locations and lots of alien worlds. It's not like your usual Doctor Who story where you land in a situation, you deal with this location on one planet, and that is it for the bulk of the runtime. This box set does a very good job of experimenting with the Doctor Who universe and kind of acknowledging that you can travel anywhere and everywhere, be it on Earth throughout various different periods, on alien worlds and landscapes and these unusual terrains. It does a very good job of creating variety, and that is kind of reflected within the sci-fi aspect of this plot as well, because in simple terms we basically get a war on Earth, a historic war. However, what happens if you get, say, a war between the Romans, and then plonk said Romans in the middle of Trafalgar Square within the 50s, and then likewise what happens if you then get a Russian nuclear missile and plonk that within them as well. So what happens when Romans meet tanks, meets modern day weapons, and all put together into one time, all occurring at once, and the Doctor needs to solve the situation because a virtual reality game in the far, far future on a human colony world has basically destroyed the universe's concept of timelines by creating time eddies all around the universe and drawing certain things from the past and future and making them all be within the present, and as a result it's also creating this character known as the Ravagers, which is kind of the main alien of the series, which are the type of character which kind of lurk in the background as a grisly villain. However, they don't actually talk throughout the series. They are the main foe that the Doctor and Nova are trying to counter-react actually happening, because this episode of this series, as you casually do throughout Doctor Who, sees the end of the universe itself, and the Ninth Doctor is kind of backpedaling throughout the midpoint onwards throughout this series to try and stop the ultimate destruction of the entirety of the universe. So yes, it's a very sci-fi plot, very techno-babble heavy. We've got timelines and time eddies and doctors from the past and future, different versions of the Ninth Doctor at least, and different versions of the main characters, all working together or against each other in order to defeat the Ravagers and then put time back on its normal track. As I have already mentioned, episode 1 in particular can be a little bit all over the place, but as you get used to it, especially for episode 2 onwards, it seems to stabilise a bit more and become more of a coherent story. But admittedly, after finishing it, it's kind of one of those episodes I think you don't need to fully understand what has happened. It's kind of one of those clever scripts where it's going all over the place with different timelines, and you don't need to fully appreciate the entirety of the plot and all of the different elements of it to fully enjoy the story itself. As we move forward into what could potentially be happening next for the Ninth Doctor, of course we have 3 volumes of adventures to look forward to, some of which are a little bit more grounded in Doctor Who history. Of course we have the return of the Cybermen on the set of a film, which the name of which escapes me at the minute, but I'm very much looking forward to that story. And we also have the Ninth Doctor meeting the Brigadier as well, which may be taking on the format of, say, the 8th Doctor adventures, as I say in what I mentioned earlier, where we have that draw into the box set that we usually expect when it comes to Doctor Who box sets in this format. So I think that it was a very bold move to have a box set that focuses solely on the Ninth Doctor as Volume 1, but at the same time I think it actually works in this box set's benefit, because we are focusing in on the Ninth Doctor, and Christopher Eccleston just so happens to be absolutely fantastic, so it definitely works to the story's benefit, because Christopher Eccleston is the draw for this series, and he most certainly delivers and is very, very, very enjoyable to listen to. I do often wonder though if Big Finish perhaps regret some of their previous Ninth Doctor releases, the likes of covering some of the events that were depicted within Clive's shed. I think it would be really cool to see a Ninth Doctor story, say with him and the Titanic, or the assassination of JFK, or maybe even Krakatoa, all of those events that we see referred to within Clive's shed. But then again, I can see the negatives of that as well, because that kind of shows that Big Finish are merely filling in the gaps of TV Doctor Who, as opposed to building the Ninth Doctor's Big Finish universe and expanding on what we already know. So I can kind of see the pros and cons of doing both of them. I think it would have been a very easy way to reintroduce the Ninth Doctor, kind of bringing in the events that we already know have happened. But again, this box set does a very good job of instantly solidifying the Ninth Doctor as an audio Doctor. 10th Doctor, it did take quite some time. I think that Volume 1 was very much, this is quite evidently the 10th Doctor, but we were kind of waiting for them to fully get going. I think that Big Finish are taking a much quicker approach of the 9th Doctor, saying this is our portrayal, this is how we are doing it, and as a result, I'm very looking forward to seeing what Big Finish do next. Okay, so I came to editing my review of Ravagers, and I realised that I didn't fully get my point across in the way that I wanted to, so I decided to come back and refilm this part of the review in the hopes of getting my point across a little bit more clearly. And I think that what I wanted to summarise with is that Ravagers 1 is not what I expected, and I think that it's not what I expected because I have an idea in my head of what it will be like for the 9th Doctor to return, because we've had so long to have an idea in our head of this what-if possibility of the 9th Doctor coming back and these brand new adventures, and undeniably the first thing that I think in my head is the return of the 9th Doctor alongside Rose Tyler, and feeling that Rose Tyler with John Barrowman, dealing with, of course, the ending half of Series 1, and kind of that bridge between Empty Child and the Doctor Dances and Boomtown, dealing with that dynamic and that rather successful TARDIS team from that time period, of course under current circumstances, of course more than ever, dealing with the current news in the media. That is most certainly not likely with the current events surrounding Noel Clarke and John Barrowman, which I'm sure you have heard of at some point, but I think that Big Finish are most certainly doing the right thing of developing their own era with the 9th Doctor, because it gives them free rein to do what they want. But that doesn't mean that some viewers are going to not be disappointed, because admittedly some viewers will want to see a direct continuation of Doctor Who Series 1 and filling in some of those gaps between the different episodes. And I think that within the later volumes of this series we are definitely going to see that. I think that as time goes on, most certainly the second volume of 9th Doctor Adventures, as we're dealing with singular stories, I think that that box set overall may deliver a more stronger, clearer direction for the 9th Doctor, but Ravagers does a good job of dealing with the 9th Doctor and reintroducing him to the Doctor Who universe in a lovely 3-hour story that gives Christopher Eccleston a lot of time to breathe with the same characters, really dealing with the relationships between the different people within the story. So I'm not going to say that this episode is absolutely standout overall, because I don't think it is. It most certainly does have some flaws. However, I'm just looking forward to seeing what Big Finish do next, because this box set most certainly shows potential, in particular with the 9th Doctor, and I think it is just going to take a little bit of time to get that right. I think that the next box set, quite possibly, judging by the trailer and the story details that have been released so far, I have high hopes for what this series is going to do next. This box set is a great start, and in particular if you're a fan of the 9th Doctor, you will enjoy this release, but the story itself can be a little bit shaky at times, but overall it is still fun, and it gives me that comforting feeling that I get when watching Doctor Who Series 1. I think that in particular is what counts for this release. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go next within this brand new era. And it is just a matter of waiting to see what happens next. So yes, this box set is enjoyable. Yes, it has some great moments. Christopher Eccleston is both blunt, hilarious, socially a bit awkward, but a really easy Doctor to listen to. And the plot itself is also fun. It delivers on the whole concept of the Doctor Who universe and time and space travel, but can be a little bit, quite literally, whooshy all over the place at times. So there we go, that is the 9th Doctor Adventures Volume 1 Ravagers, as written by Nicholas Briggs. I really hope you have enjoyed this review, and if you have listened to this box set, why not leave your mini reviews in the comments section below. However, please do keep them as spoiler-free as possible for those listeners who haven't listened to this box set as of yet. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content each and every week, as well as regular Big Finish audio drama reviews. And of course, on that note, I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.